Today's occasional address is to be delivered by Professor Jake Baum. Jake Baum is a Professor of Infectious Diseases and Head of the School of Biomedical Sciences at the UNSW Faculty of Medicine and Health. Jake is a parasitologist, cell biologist and innovator in infectious disease translational research. After completing bachelor and master's degrees at Oxford and a PhD from the London School of Hygiene, he joined the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute of Medical Research in Melbourne to work on the molecular and cellular biology of the malaria parasite. During this time, Jake co-discovered Plasmodium falciparum merozoite surface antigen, PFRH5, the current lead-of-field blood-stage malaria vaccine, a discovery that facilitated establishing his own independent lab in 2010. Graduates and guests, please join me in welcoming Professor Jake Baum.
Deputy Chancellor, Senior Vice Dean, Medicine and Health, colleagues, distinguished guests, graduating students and families. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of these unceded lands, the rolling plains on which UNSW Sydney sits, the Bidjigal and Gadigal communities. Bidjigal, I believe, means plain dwellers in the Darug language, one of the languages native to this area of New South Wales. So today, as you walk around the campus with your friends and family, pause to consider the incredible history witnessed by these rolling plains and the debt of gratitude we owe to it, privileged to be able to study, learn, and work freely in such a unique and beautiful place. This is my first occasional address. Let me clarify. This is the first time I've been to any graduation ceremony, including my own. I will explain why. I grew up in Bristol, a small city in the southwest of England. My father was an eminent paediatrician. My mother was and still is an abstract painter. I was brought up to ask questions at the dinner table, to study the world. Consumed by David Attenborough television shows, I decided very early on that I would be a biologist. Though I went to a very modest state school, with help, I managed to beat the odds and gain a place at Oxford University to study biology. Guaranteed lifelong success clearly would ensue. Not necessarily. So what I want to stress today isn't success. Perhaps controversially, it's failure. Most occasional addresses I've watched in preparation for today stress that graduation is one of the most important days of your life. Okay, for some of you it might be. But I can imagine that there are a few here that carry, as I did, a sense of failure. Perhaps you've not done as well as you'd expected. Perhaps you feel you should have done medicine. Perhaps you have no idea what tomorrow brings, and that scares you quite a lot. At the end of my degree at Oxford, I was due to enjoy the very same ceremony. But two things, however, conspired to change my path. The first was the sudden death of my father. I felt bereft. I felt uninterested in any form of celebration. Consumed by grief, all I could focus on was that I wasn't training to be a medic, like him. The second was that I didn't do well enough in my final exams. A PhD in Cambridge studying biological anthropology was promised to me, but it required a distinction, and I'd fallen a few grades short. It was too late to enroll in postgraduate medicine, and I was lost, and I was feeling a deep sense of failure. With no fallback plan, I picked myself up and I wrote, pre-email, I mailed letters to every research lab I could find on the internet that looked interesting. And to my great surprise, a few months later, a letter came from a parasitologist in Jerusalem offering me a one-year job in his lab. I said yes. This single year changed my whole life's journey. Working with Palestinians and Israelis on the ancient relationship of Levantine goats, a fascinating subject, I kid you not, and living in one of the most complex and amazing cities in the world, I realized a profound lesson. You have to follow your own path. I was discovering a world of parasites, population genetics, and ancient human history. Maybe I didn't need to become a medic after all. With fresh perspective, my luck changed. I acquired a PhD back in the UK jointly in Oxford and London to explore human genetics and malaria, a subject that I still work on today. Now, clearly, success was guaranteed. At the end of my PhD, I submitted 3 applications for fellowships to study malaria further and applied to several jobs. Rejection followed rejection. I'd fallen again. Perhaps I was deluded. Maybe this wasn't my path. Maybe this wasn't meant to be. Medicine? Another year out followed. I considered throwing in the towel and finding an entirely different career. Then, on a chance recommendation from a friend, I was introduced to Professor Alan Cowman, the world-leading authority on malaria cell biology. Over a coffee, he took a chance on me and he offered me a 2-year position at the WEHI in Melbourne. I said yes, telling my mother soon afterwards that I'd be back from Oz in 2 years. She needn't worry. Within 2 years, I'd met my now wife, Andrea. I'd become a resident. We got married a few years later, and our first child was born. And my mum forgave me for living in the lucky country. Clearly, now I could assume that things would run smoothly. I worked my guts out in Alan's lab, and after 5 years, I discovered a small protein called RH5 that I believed was destined to be the foundation for a universal malaria vaccine. We submitted the paper to the most prestigious journals we could, waiting for the almost certain accolades to follow. But after 6 months of waiting, we received a brutal rejection. Worse still, another group published on RH5 before us. We'd been scooped. We rushed publication to an Australian journal, and colleagues advised me, well, move on. Failure? Not so fast. RH5 is now in clinical trials in Tanzania, and it's working. I'm not involved with those trials, but that paper I published is one of the most highly cited papers from my career. What am I trying to say? As C.S. Lewis, the famous author, said, failures are signposts on the road to success. On the road to achievement. Or a civil rights activist, Maya Angelou, said, it may be necessary to encounter defeats so you know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it. I now passionately believe that failure is a key part of every journey. Or to quote Einstein, failure is success in progress. So, heartfelt congratulations to all of you. For those of you reflecting on how everything has gone your way, relish that feeling. Celebrate it, but don't take it for granted. It won't always be like this. But thanks to the amazing lessons you've undoubtedly learned here at UNSW through teachers and friends, you should feel confident that you can achieve anything. And great things. And for those of you nursing a sense of failure or uncertainty, well, you went one better than me. You showed up on your graduation. You smiled for the camera. And you can say to yourself, this too shall pass. Or as Richard Feynman said, the most important thing in life is not being afraid to fail. As head of the School of Biomedical Sciences, I want to close by saying something about the biomedical journey itself. My father used to tell the story of the starfish, his metaphor for the importance of being a clinician. This is the story. As an old man walked down the beach at dawn, he noticed a young girl picking up starfish and putting them into the sea. He asked the girl, "Why are you doing this?" She answered that the starfish would die if left out in the morning sun. "But the beach goes on for miles, and there are thousands and thousands of starfish," countered the old man. "How can your effort make any difference?" The child looked at the starfish in her hand and placed it gently in the safety of the waters. "It makes a difference to this one." It's a powerful story. Make a difference to one patient, save one life. But I'll let you in on a secret and ask any clinicians to plug their ears. There is a way to save not just one starfish, but every starfish on that beach, and it isn't necessarily by becoming a medic. In the COVID pandemic, it wasn't clinicians that changed the game, it was biomedical research. It was finding the cures and treatments, the vaccines and diagnostics, and the decades of research that came, which included a huge amount of failure. Dame Sarah Gilbert, who developed the AstraZeneca vaccine, is a researcher, not a clinician. So whether you stay in biomedical sciences, whether you pursue medicine, I do still love clinicians, or you go on to something completely different, the perspective you've gained these last few years should still empower you to make a profound difference to the world. So in closing, whatever today means, go from here. You've got a jump start on life and a degree from UNSW. Use it well. Be prepared to fail. Fail often, and then get up again. Blaze your own path. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. He said this was his first graduation address. I think he did pretty well. But he gave some really important lessons that I'd like to just repeat about following your own path. And on the surface, his career looks amazingly successful, but littered by trying and not receiving success immediately. One of the quote that I do like is, failure is not the opposite of success. It's a necessary path on the way to success. I actually got that from ChatGPT. I'm not sure if that's the correct quotation because ChatGPT steals it from somebody else. But he also mentioned the importance of biomedical research and the importance of persistence in gaining success in that field. Graduation ceremonies give us the opportunity to hear the wisdom of an eminent member of our society, which we have done today. On behalf of all assembled today, I express the university's appreciation for your contribution to this, our most important of ceremonies, and I ask you to join me again in expressing our appreciation to Professor Jake Baum.